Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to our special Board of Regents meeting. These are extraordinary times, and I appreciate the recent days of discussions. I'll call a roll of the regents one by one so they can be noted for the record and for those not able to see the screen. Regent Acker.
Good evening. Present.
Regent Beam.
Here.
Regent Bernstein.
I'm here, thank you.
Regent Brown.
Here.
Regent Diggs.
Here, present.
Thank you. Regent Illich.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Wiser.
Here, I've taken off my bank robber mask.
And Regent White. And I believe Regent White is off on her military duty and not joining us this evening unless she calls in later.
Hi.
I've asked for this evening's meeting after several days of discussions and planning that allow us to describe in more detail the budget we're proposing for the upcoming fiscal year. We're required to have a budget in place in order to continue the functions of the university into our new fiscal year, which starts this Wednesday, July the 1st. The documents we shared for last week's meeting are identical and are posted on the Regents website with the June 25th board agenda and materials. But I want to highlight some important points and commitments we're making as part of our budget. First, half of the 1.9% tuition increase for Ann Arbor campus will be invested in increased student financial aid that is specifically linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. This budget will cover the entire cost of the increase for in-state students receiving need-based aid, and the Financial Aid Office stands ready to adjust or grant new aid to families whose circumstances have changed because of the pandemic. If these needs exceed the budgeted amount, we will tap into our reserves to meet them. We're committed to do our very best to make sure that the COVID-19 pandemic does not result in a lost generation of students who are unable to continue or complete their Michigan educations because of the circumstances we find ourselves in. The university will incur many millions of dollars in additional costs due to the needs of our public health informed fall semester. For example, we'll be making extensive use of testing for the virus that causes COVID-19 to keep our community safe, and each test costs about $100. The $50 per semester temporary COVID-19 fee will help defray some of these costs, and the budget also commits general fund resources to these costs as well. The budget includes the use of more than $400 million from our endowment, even though the value of the endowment will undoubtedly be diminished by the severe COVID-19 induced economic recession. The budget already calls for using reserves to cover an expected deficit due to the pandemic of $19 million, and the cost-saving measures we've implemented will result in about $100 million in savings in FY21. These include a hiring freeze, suspending most travel and other non-essential spending, and freezing the salaries of non-represented employees. The plan also presumes flat state funding, though we have to be realistic because we may face a large cut that will make further demands on our budget and reserves. The modest 1.9% increase being proposed, therefore, is just one of the many ways we're addressing the financial hardships created by the pandemic. And we've made it so our students with financial need will not be affected. Outside of the budget, I'll be doubling the amount promised last week to support student success on our Flint and Dearborn campuses. This new $20 million investment will be devoted to programs that enhance recruitment, retention, and graduation. I appreciate the many voices who've advocated for greater investments to promote increased enrollment and greater student success at our regional campuses. I'll be working closely with the chancellors to determine how best to target this funding since they know their campuses the best. I would like to ask for a motion and a second on the revenue and expenditure operating budgets for the FY 2021 year, and then open the floor for discussion and comment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I now call for discussion or comment.
I'm happy to go first. I have a few things I'd like to say.
Thank you. Regent Brown.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the president, the executive team, the dean, staff, and especially the other members of the board for their hard work and patience during this huge task known as the budget. You all know it affects over 60,000 employees and over 60,000 students and tens of thousands of patients. It represents over $12 billion in revenue and spending on everything from 3 academic campuses and a statewide healthcare system and a couple dozen major sports programs, et cetera, et cetera. As you know, at our last Regents meeting, we were presented with a budget that I feared did not adequately support all of our campuses, staff, students, and their families during these unprecedented times. In the days since our last meeting, the president and staff have spent countless hours giving me clarity on and adding to those programs designed to support those in our community who are in need. Because of those efforts, I am an enthusiastic supporter of this budget, not to mention our president and team, specifically the 1.9% tuition increase, which will allow us to eliminate any tuition increase for most families with income under $125,000 and increase our financial and administrative support for families whose income was dramatically hurt by this 2020 economic downturn. Lastly, I believe the investment of $20 million in our Flint and Dearborn campuses, aligned with the Chancellor's strategic plans, create an unprecedented opportunity for those campuses to only increase the world-class education provided at those schools. So we can continue to say we are truly the leaders and best. So thank you again, President and staff. And again, I'm an enthusiastic supporter of this budget.
Thank you, Regent Brown. Other comments or discussion? Regent Beam.
Thanks, Mark. A couple of things in this year's budget, accomplishing 2 things were very important to me. First is assuring that U of M Flint and U of M Dearborn have increased funds in such an equitable distribution of $20 million in this budget will allow these 2 vitally important campuses to, like you said, recruit, retain, and graduate Pell eligible students. Not just accept students and wish them well, but provide wraparound services many first-time, first-generation, and underrepresented students need in order to truly flourish and succeed. Second, it was that this year, those under financial strain not be asked to pay a tuition increase. I know what school loans feel like. As a newly married couple, my wife and I had over $100,000 in student loans. Our student loans, the payments were twice that of our house mortgage. Students in financial need, including those whose families have been affected by the pandemic, will see no increase in their total costs, including fees, tuition, and room and board. Just a few stats from the Go Blue Guarantee website. For example, who are these people who won't receive an increase? Well, for example, 98% of Michigan families with incomes from $65,000 to $95,000 receive financial aid. Because they receive the financial aid, financial assistance, there's no increase. 90% of families between $95,000 and $125,000 of a family income, and even 72% of families between $125,000 and $150,000 will receive no increase. Even 60% of families with family incomes who receive financial assistance between $150,000 and $180,000 will receive no increase. It's important to point out that some of these people do pay increase because their family has assets, a large amount of assets, even though their income is not that for an annual amount. It's important to point out also that 50% of in-state students will not receive a tuition increase this year. I think some people, we also hear people mention other universities who have not had an increase. It's important to do some investigation. A few of the universities who have not reported a tuition increase have implemented across-the-board salary cuts. We have not done that. Basically, we have, in order to assist our students who are struggling financially, we've asked those who can afford to pay a very small amount more to do so. Thanks.
Thank you, Regent Beam. Other questions, comments, or discussion?
Yes, I have one.
Okay, Regent Wiser, then Regent Bernstein, then Regent Diggs.
I'll defer to Regent Bernstein first, and then I'll go after that. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron. I want to amplify President Schlissel's message, join my colleagues who are supportive of this budget. President Schlissel mentioned our commitment to financial aid, and I really want to spend a little bit of time talking about the way in which we provide financial aid, the priorities that motivate me in terms of my support for this approach, share some facts about it, and talk really who gets this aid and how we do it. So I want to start with an admission of failure. I think that frankly, all of higher education have done a clumsy job at best talking about affordability. The public and even many in the higher ed community, I think, focus too frequently on the sticker price of tuition. And that is a inherently deceptive and misleading number. Why? Because the vast majority of our students, don't pay the sticker price or the full tuition amount. Most of our students don't pay tuition, not even close. And only those who can and should do. Let me also be clear about something. Despite decades of cuts to education funding in Michigan, we are the only public university in Michigan, the only one that covers 100% of the demonstrated financial need of Michigan students. This year, we will spend well over $500 million on student support. The last campaign raised over $1 billion in financial support. It's a major obvious priority for this institution. 70% of our Ann Arbor students receive financial aid. That's tens of thousands of students. And here's something that I'm proud of that's really important and also underappreciated. 1 in 4 in-state undergrad students at U of M pay 0 tuition due to financial aid. That means that over 4,100 in-state students at our school in Ann Arbor pay no tuition. They attend our university for free. In contrast to many other schools, and this is also really important to appreciate, I think, we do this on a massive scale. So this number, take the 4,100 number roughly, it's a little more than that. This is about the same, to put that in perspective for a second, that's about the same number of students at Dartmouth. Yale has 5,900 students, Princeton 5,400 students. It's half the number of students, undergrad students at Northwestern, which has about 8,200 students. So who does pay full tuition? Students who can, and therefore, in my opinion, should, and are getting one of the great bargains in higher education, paying about half of what out-of-state students pay. So I urge my colleagues to consider these facts when considering this budget. 100%, some of my colleagues already mentioned this, but I think it's worth repeating, that 100% of our students with demonstrated financial aid will not see their tuition increase by a single penny, not a dime. They shouldn't and they won't. And this also applies to housing fees and health services fees and all the rest. Under this budget, 90% of our students from families with an income of up to 125 grand won't pay a penny more. And this continues a decade-long trend. In-state students from families with household income below $120,000 pay less today than they did 10 years ago. And out-of-state students from families with household incomes below 80,000 are paying less than they did 10 years ago. Fundamentally, I believe that lower income students who struggle to pay tuition depend upon those who can to reduce the cost of their college education. And then finally, with regard to Flint and Dearborn, the previous budget with 10 million plus about 11 million in institutional aid at Flint, for example, was a good start. This budget, though, doubles this investment with $20 million. So this budget, after these additions, is an even better one. And so for these reasons, I urge my colleagues to support this budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Regent Bernstein. Either Regent Diggs or Regent Wiser, I've lost track.
I'm happy to go next. I've received a lot of emails about how rich this university is, and I want to talk a little bit about the endowment from two perspectives, both as a donor, and as you know, I'm a substantial donor to the university, and as a regent, because I've looked at the endowment closely, and I'm on the committee that reviews the endowment and how it's used. The endowment is not a single endowment. The endowment is made up of almost 12,000 individual endowed funds, each one with its own restrictions. The amount of unallocated funds in the endowment that aren't restricted by federal rules but are still restricted by federal rules on spending policies, and in many cases act as the reserves that we need for the units of the university that have put them there as reserves. For instance, the hospital will be using its reserves to build the new tower that's there, which is absolutely critical to its future existence because the old tower will be obsolete in a decade. So there are reasons that this money can't be used in all the different ways that have been proposed to me. While we are a university that's blessed by having an endowment that is going to give us $400 million this year, most of that money is restricted to certain areas. For instance, for me, the money that I've given is going to be restricted to pediatric brain cancer research, to food allergy research, to diabetes research, and hundreds of millions of dollars will come from the endowment that will be used for student aid. So those things can't be taken away and used in other ways, and both legally and morally and contractually. So I wanted to make that comment because of this, I think, misnomer or misunderstanding of the wealth of the school. It's not a $12 million endowment we can just dip into and use the corpus. It's not a $12 million endowment where we can take the income and spread it and put it any place we want. We have legal and moral and federal policy and law obligations of how we can spend it. So I did want to make a comment about that. I also wanted to make a comment about why I and other regents asked for this meeting, which President Slissel mentioned before. This university would literally have closed on the 1st of July. We would have had to legally stop paying everyone. I mean, can you see the Guernseys taking patients out of the hospital and trying to move them to other places? That's literally what could have happened if we had not had this meeting, so we have the opportunity to pass a budget. You cannot operate this university without a budget from a legal basis, on a legal basis. I want to make, that's why this was done so quickly, and why a number of regents as well as the president asked that we reconsider the budget. So that's the second point that I wanted to make. So those two things are important to understand, that while we are blessed to have these 12,000 endowments that help us across the university, from medical research to helping students with in need to doing all kinds of specialized things that the donors intended. And we're also blessed to have the amount of money that we have available coming from the endowment for student aid. We also have obligations to do the research and other things that the donors have committed their money for. And if we didn't do that, they'd have the ability to take their money back out. So I'll leave this now to Regent Diggs. I know she has a comment or two.
Thank you, Regent Wiser. Regent Diggs?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So, thank you. So, first, I appreciate everyone's comments, and And I also appreciate sort of the thoughtful way that people have approached the issue in the last few days. But again, on reflecting since Thursday, I'll add to my comments from Thursday because I believe that this period in our history is not the time for a tuition increase. I think the economic uncertainties that are faced by families and businesses, I just feel that students who don't qualify for financial aid are likely to be caught in the middle as their families experience sudden recurrent decreases in income for the unforeseeable future. I think that we should use multiple levers that are available to us to mitigate the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on students and families. I think there are some differences in basic principles. The administrative leadership team believes that tuition should always increase annually. The principle is that students should share the burden of increased costs from payroll, energy, infrastructure, food and housing, and even in health crises such as the coronavirus pandemic. I do not agree. Now, I've consistently voted in favor of tuition increases, but this year is unlike any other in our lifetimes. When a global health crisis evolves into an economic crisis, we should not increase our tuition. In this once every 100-year pandemic, the only prices increasing are hand sanitizer and masks. Every other institution in the corporate and nonprofit arenas are holding their prices because, as a recent article I read by McKinsey stated, organizations that, quote, focus on long-term value rather than short-term gain are best positioned. I believe we should focus on long-term value and not short-term gain. Today, a student named Barry emailed me stating that, quote, I believe that raising tuition in a pandemic will lock the University of Michigan in a detrimental cycle of tuition increases. These are inconsistent with the rates of growth of minimum wage, which is currently still less than $10 in the state of Michigan. Many students and families who might otherwise be able to pay tuition have lost their jobs and face uncertainty. My classmates have faced significant unemployment, and I personally have had to make the choice of continuing to work in an unsafe environment or pay my bills, tuition included. Due to systemic shortcomings, many students were ineligible for government aid like myself, and my financial situation is significantly worse now than ever, end quote. So under our current process, students such as Barry would reapply using the federal financial aid form, would likely be rejected, and then would appeal in order to be considered for relief with the COVID financial aid. The number of students who are rejected, then appeal, and then the result of the appeal, this is currently not tracked in our system. So we have no idea how many students in the past have been rejected on their financial aid form, then appeal, and then we don't know if their appeal is granted or not. So I feel strongly that a more streamlined approach is needed during these uncertain times. I think students should have an automatic review. If they apply for emergency funds with a temporary furlough, death, or illness of an income-producing family member in their home, or a new unemployment in their home, this could be a trigger for an automatic review that would not require the family deciding to appeal. So the administrative team presented a 1.5% tuition increase to the board, which was then increased at the recommendation of a regent to 1.9%, and then presented to us the Tuesday prior to the vote. So these budgets, both the 1.5 and the 1.9, were based on projections with some level of enrollment declines, a lower indirect cost recovery, and an unknown state appropriation. In addition, both budgets included significant cost-cutting measures, as well as increased expenses due to the coronavirus. I feel that with all of these incredible uncertainties, it makes it difficult for me to vote to increase tuition at this date. In May, our board approved a $1 billion line of credit to leverage our assets to borrow monies if needed to cover some of these uncertainties around athletics, capital projects, and investments. I believe it's a value statement to not use the line of credit for uncertainties on the academic side of the budget as well. The $17 million raised with this tuition increase reflects about $650 per in-state undergraduate and $1,300 per out-of-state undergraduate. And these amounts are closer to the $2,000 to $3,500 range for graduate and professional students. Of course, as has been stated, students already receiving financial aid will not pay the sticker price. But again, the students who are not currently getting financial aid are very likely to fall through the cracks. Last Thursday, our president stated that these amounts are de minimis. But if that's the case, then the university shouldn't charge them, particularly if the projections don't materialize and no refunds are going to be given. So in closing, I appreciate the efforts of the leadership and my fellow regents in all of these budget discussions. I particularly appreciate the very hard work of regents and the leadership team and the president to generate this $20 million fund for Flint and Dearborn. This investment is so needed, as I discussed in my comments last week, so I won't review them, but it's much appreciated by me. I look forward to our continued work for the betterment of our institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Diggs. Further discussion or comment? Regent Illich.
I just want to thank everybody. It's really fun and interesting to be the new chair, starting out our year the way we have. But thank you for all of your time and effort. I remain steadfast in believing that raising tuition on Michigan students and their families during this global pandemic, the like at which we haven't seen in over 100 years, is dead wrong. Michigan has record levels of employment, businesses have closed, more will close, and the governor recently announced the rest of the state cannot move into phase 5. She indicated that she is concerned. For the 5th consecutive day, the Michigan Department of Health announced more than 300 newly confirmed coronavirus cases. And as the Free Press reported, Michigan is starting to see a rise once again. Raising prices when we have high unemployment, many people in the private sector taking significant decreases in compensation, and people being sick is just wrong. As a nation, we continue to experience unprecedented changes, challenges, and volatility because of the highly contagious COVID-19 and its many unknown impacts. There's not enough testing, there's little tracing, and no vaccine. And as students come back to campus, what are the tracing and testing protocols? We have not seen that detail yet. We have not felt the full effects and consequences of COVID-19. What will our economy look like when the enhanced unemployment benefits are done? What impact will that have on students and families? At the university this past spring and summer, the entire educational experience was remote at full price. The value proposition is just not the same this year. The majority of the fall semester will be remote classes with many experiences and services compromised. The university, through no fault of its own, is unable to offer the same great academic experience. The administration projects there will be a 50-50 chance we will not even complete the semester. I believe the odds are even higher. Just recently, it was reported that college students packed a bar in East Lansing, where the number of cases of COVID-19 increased to 76. Students then traveled back to the Grosse Pointes, and 30 new cases were reported. This example is only a microcosm of what we will face this fall. We are still in the first wave of this pandemic. When experts talk about a second wave in the fall and the winter, we can't even get out of the first wave. With this uncertainty, why would we raise prices on our students and families during this crisis and pile on with an increase of a housing fee and a health services fee, an increase and a COVID increase during a pandemic? On Friday, I had heard some describe these fees as de minimis, And this word is usually used in a legal sense, and it's defined as too trivial or minor to merit consideration. As Shauna indicated, and more specifically, all of the increases in the amount of dollars for our freshmen, to all the increase of tuition and the fees totals around $618. And for our out-of-state freshmen, the amount is $1,294, and that goes up in your junior year. If you were walking and $618 was lying in the street, would you step over it and pass by it because it was de minimis? The sacrifices made routinely by our students and their families is not commensurate with the sacrifices made by the university. Students and their families are being asked to sacrifice more. Many Michigan universities, including Michigan State and Wayne State, are not raising tuition during this crisis. MSU President Stanley announced a tuition freeze and stated in the coming months, many families will be facing difficult financial decisions as a result of the pandemic. And we are doing what we can to ensure students can stay in our Spartan family. Roy Wilson, president of Wayne State, also announced a tuition freeze and commented, "We hope to help others face this unprecedented challenges by easing the financial burden on our students." As I have previously indicated, the University of Michigan is a wealthy institution and can well afford to maintain the status quo in tuition costs during the pandemic. We have multiple financial levers we can pull to maintain our current tuition cost. We have over a $12 billion endowment, and our spending policy can be temporarily modified to adapt to this crisis. We also have a $1 billion line of credit. We have multiple reserves to tap into, and we have many, many opportunities to control costs and spend money more efficiently. And again, as reported by our CFO in the annual report, we have planned for this financially. A revenue diversification strategy has been in place through various economic cycles to avoid unnecessary dependence on student tuition and fee increases. Well, we are in a cycle, and it's not a good one. On a personal note, I'm in my 11th year as a regent, and I feel privileged to serve Michigan citizens. I do my homework, and I try to consider the effects on all when reviewing policies of the university. I was raised by parents who are self-made. Nothing was handed to them. They were children of the Depression. They learned a strong work ethic, and they were frugal. Now, some may joke my dad was not that frugal when he was recruiting baseball players, but seriously, one of the values that they emphasized was to treat people's money as you would your own. They used to call it OPMs, other people's money. Anyone who knows me is familiar with the term. Those are the principles I bring here today, and my strong belief that we do not raise prices on our Michigan students and families during a pandemic. I have received many letters from students and parents, or as we say in business, our customers. I received one such letter from a parent, which I will paraphrase for the sake of time, but I do want it in the record. Dear Ms. Illich, thank you for advocating and supporting a tuition freeze. My son, who will be in his second year at the School of Engineering, As parents, my husband and I are doing everything we can to keep him safe. We are doing our part, but are asking the university to find another way to find cost savings and not raise tuition this year due to the economic uncertainty created by the pandemic. Most of us have been adversely affected and have had loss of income. A second letter that I'd like to also read and be in the record paraphrased. Hello, Regents Acker, Brown, Ryder, Diggs, and Illich. I am the parent of a junior at the University of Michigan. And then she goes on to write in very bold print, I beg of you to please keep the out-of-state families in mind. We are also struggling during this pandemic. My greatest fear is that my daughter will not be able to complete her degree at UMich if the tuition is increased. And lastly, from a student, dear Regent Illich, I am currently a junior at the Ross Business School with a focus in film and television. I am also a member on the Assembly of Central Student Government. Thank you for your vote. I really felt that you understood the student perspective, and it's something I appreciate. We cannot fail our students and their families at this most critical and dire moment. So it's really for these reasons that I oppose this proposed 1.9% increase in tuition during the global pandemic. Sadly, it reflects a disconnect from day-to-day reality that I believe is just plain wrong. I'd also like to, I know that President Schlissel, you had indicated on Friday that we would review this meeting we would have this meeting in July, and then there was a special meeting called. I do know that I had a conversation with you. You indicated that the budget could be extended from a legal standpoint without anybody being compromised in any way until a budget agreement was reached. Because of the special meeting, we are not able to have public comments. And I received, I think that we all did, a letter that I also would like to be read into the record, Vice President Churchill. So you all indulge me. It's a short letter, but I'd like it to be in the record. Dear U of M Board of Regents, President Schlissel, Provost Collins, and Deans, I am emailing in my role as President of Rackham Student Government on behalf of myself and the Vice President of Rackham Student Government, and in partnership with the President and Vice President of Central Student Government. Upon learning of the emergency meeting tonight for the Board of Regents to vote upon the budget and without time for public comments, we ask that you, the University Administration and Board of Regents, dutifully consider these tumultuous times and recognize the severity of the hardships every student is facing, and strongly urge you to not approve a budget that would serve to only further cause financial distress. Please see the attached statement, which calls for a budget that there is an attachment to it, Sally, that I will forward to you after. Number one, at minimum, a housing, tuition, and student fee freeze to the 2019-2020 rates, if not a reduction in these costs across all three campuses. Number two, removal of the proposed $50 student COVID-19 fee. Number three, removal of the proposed 1.9% increase in university health services fees. And four, the immediate removal of the $500 semester international student fee. Respectfully, Sarah Jane Bork, Rackham Student Government President. Thank you.
If I may, President Schlissel, I do want to, with all due respect to my colleague, Regent Illich, I congratulate her on being the new chairman, but it doesn't start till the 1st, which is, I'm still the chairman until
That's right. I stand corrected. I got all excited.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion before we proceed to vote? Yes, Regent Acker.
Thank you, President Schlissel. When we met last week, as I said then, I was very concerned about the uncertainty that was going into this semester. I was concerned going forward about what the semester would look like. And of course, I was concerned about the amount of funding that went to Flint and Dearborn to make sure that they could set up programs towards completion and retention. Now, we have spoken several times. I've spoken several times with the administrative team. And this evening, I will vote yes on this budget. But I want to explain what it is and what it is not. I'm voting for this budget because it has new pledges to eliminate some uncertainty. It is funding for students whose situations have changed from COVID. It is no tuition increase for families in Michigan whose income is under $120,000. And it does have a 1.9% increase on our wealthiest students. The one thing that I will point out is I do share Regent Diggs' concerns about statistics when it comes to student aid. And so I will call on the administration over this next year to make sure that they keep the statistics on the new students who are receiving financial aid, how many students apply for it, and who, if anyone, fails through this appeals process. I think it's important that we know that information. I want to say what it is not. It is my vote last week was not a vote of no confidence on the administration. In fact, it is the opposite. It is a challenge to the administration, to President Schlissel and to the Chancellor Dutta and Grasso, to do what needs to be done to make sure that our university and all of our campuses both survive and thrive through this pandemic. And the one thing that this vote is not, it is not an endorsement of this process. I am extremely disappointed in the process over the last few days. I feel it is extremely important to take public comment. And I've spent most of the day today, like Regent Illich has, reading emails and listening to feedback from constituents. So I think the one thing that Regent Illich and I, as the vice chair and chair, have to really work on is to make sure the process is better going forward, with more public input, with more conversations about what the budget does, and most importantly, meeting the one area that we must really improve next year, which is our communication between the board, but most importantly about what the budget does and does not do from the university to our constituents. So I will vote yes on this budget. I'm happy to vote yes on this budget. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm not thrilled with a 1.9% increase across the board. Of course, that is not the case. As I said, no tuition increase for Michiganders who earn under $120,000. But in spite of my misgivings about this budget, we have to weigh this on a whole. And ultimately, I've weighed that this is the right budget for now. It is a start, and it's a start towards a pathway that I think we can continue forward on for 2021. Thank you, President Schlissel.
Thank you, Regent Acker. Any further discussion or comment before we actually vote?
President Schlissel, you may want to just confirm that Regent White is not on the line. I don't think she is, but in case she wants to comment.
Regent White, are you on the line? I don't hear her. Do you hear her, Sally?
I do not. Thank you. I just didn't want her to be missed if she wanted to speak.
So I'm going to read the roster and ask you to affirm your vote once again, because there are some people that don't have video. Regent Acker?
Yes.
Regent Beam?
Yes.
Regent Bernstein?
You're on
Regent
mute.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have to
Regent
be
Brown?
quiet here in the law library. It's very
I won't be as dramatic as Regent Bernstein. I'm a quick yes.
Thank you. Regent Diggs?
No.
Regent Illich?
No.
Regent Wiser?
Yes.
Thank you. And once again, Regent White, if you're present. Thank you. So I've got 5 yeses and 2 nos. So the university's budget motion carries. I thank you all very much for the hard work, the discussion, the thoughts, the prompting, the questions. The honest disagreements expressed with eloquence are much appreciated. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and I call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye. Happy 4th.
Thanks.